Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today's Gospel is taken from John chapter 5. In the Gospel today, Jesus Christ performs a great miracle. Jesus cures a man who has been ill for 38 years. And what's even more remarkable, perhaps, than the great action that Jesus performs is when he performs it. In this Gospel in John chapter 5, we're told a few times that Jesus performs this miracle on the Sabbath. And because Jesus performs this miracle on the Sabbath, what should be a day of rest, he receives great criticism from other Jewish people. We might find this a bit surprising. What could possibly be wrong with healing someone, even if it is on the Sabbath? We need to recognize that keeping the Sabbath was so important at this time because the Sabbath, or one of the reasons it was important, is because the Sabbath was something that was ingrained in the very DNA of creation. We find this in the creation account in Genesis chapter 1 that extends into the first few verses of Genesis chapter 2. In this seventh-day creation account, we read that on the seventh day, God completed the work he had been doing. He rested on the seventh day from all the work he had undertaken. God rested on the seventh day. The verb in Hebrew here for to rest is Shabbat. So we see that God himself actually lived the Sabbath in his work of creation. And because of this, the seventh day was always supposed to be a day of rest, a day of Sabbath, just as God himself marked or God himself recognized. Jesus in the gospel today, of course, recognized the importance of the Sabbath. It was something fundamental to his religion. At the same time, Jesus recognizes that there's sometimes in extraordinary situations where there's a greater call, a greater good to be done. And in this case, it was to heal the man who had been ill for 38 years. We can see ourselves perhaps faced with a similar dilemma in our lives today during this pandemic. For us followers of Jesus, for us Catholics, coming to Mass to gather together to receive Holy Communion on Sunday is something so fundamental to our faith. The Eucharist, as we're told, is the source and summit of our faith. There are, like in the life of Jesus, in our life too, extraordinary situations where we're called to perhaps follow a different way. And this is happening now with on Sundays, the public celebration of the Eucharist being temporarily suspended. This is something very difficult, something very painful, since this is so fundamental to our faith to gather together for the Eucharist on Sunday. But we can, I think, see ourselves in some way as paralleling or following the example of Jesus, who, for him, recognizing the Sabbath, celebrating the Shabbat would have been something very, very important. For us, though, we see at this time of pandemic that there is perhaps a greater call during this extraordinary time. Rather than coming together to gather together for the Eucharist on Sunday, we're called to preserve human life, to keep people healthy, to keep them safe. I hope you're all doing well. Take care and God bless you.